The burgundy wine swirled in crystal glasses as laughter echoed through our dining room. I watched from the kitchen doorway, arranging dessert plates with deliberate precision, while my husband Marcus held court at the head of our mahogany table. Financial literacy? Marcus gestured expansively with his wine glass, his voice carrying that particular tone of condescension I'd grown to recognize over our 6 years of marriage. Some people just don't have the mind for numbers. Take my wife, for instance. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I paused, the silver dessert fork perfectly aligned with the knife on the porcelain plate. My fingers didn't tremble. They never did anymore. Years of maintaining composure in boardrooms filled with hostile stakeholders had trained me well. Marcus, don't, came a half-hearted protest from Jennifer, his colleague's wife, but her smile suggested she wanted to hear more. No, no, it's fine, Marcus continued, warming to his subject. Sophia's wonderful at other things: interior design, planning dinner parties, keeping the house beautiful. But numbers? Balance sheets? He laughed, that booming sound that had once charmed me at a gallery opening 7 years ago. She can't even read a balance sheet. Asked me last week what EBITDA stood for. The men around the table, 4 senior managers from Hartwell Industries, Marcus's company, chuckled knowingly. Their wives offered sympathetic looks in my direction, the kind reserved for someone who couldn't possibly understand the complex world of corporate finance. If only they knew. I'd asked Marcus about EBITDA last week deliberately, testing a theory that had been forming for months. His explanation had been condescending, oversimplified, and critically wrong. He'd confused EBITDA with EBIT, a mistake no genuine finance professional would make. It was one more piece of evidence in the file I'd been building, one more red flag among dozens. Sophia, darling, Marcus called out, noticing me in the doorway. We're ready for dessert whenever you are, though don't worry if you can't divide the tart into equal portions. Math was never your strong suit. More laughter. I smiled, the practiced expression I'd perfected over countless dinner parties just like this one. Of course, dear. I'll do my best not to give anyone an unfair share. The irony was exquisite. Tomorrow morning, I would be sitting in the executive boardroom of Morrison & Chen, the largest auditing firm in the Northeast, reviewing the preliminary findings of Hartwell Industries' annual audit. As Chief Financial Officer of Morrison & Chen, I would be the one determining whether Marcus's division had committed the financial irregularities our forensic team had flagged 3 weeks ago. I returned to the kitchen, where the chocolate tart sat waiting, perfectly, divided into 8 equal portions, because precision mattered, even in desserts, especially in desserts. The same attention to detail that made me successful at work, the same careful planning that had built my career from junior accountant to CFO, the same methodical approach that was about to unravel my husband's carefully constructed lies. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. A message from David Chen, my business partner and co-founder of Morrison & Chen. New developments in the Hartwell case. Call me when you can. Not tonight, I typed back quickly. Tomorrow's meeting still on? Confirmed. 9 a.m. sharp. You're going to want to see what we found. I pocketed my phone and picked up the dessert tray. Through the doorway, I could see Marcus gesturing animatedly, probably continuing his dissertation on my supposed financial incompetence. The thing was, Marcus didn't know about my career. Not really. When we met 7 years ago at an art gallery opening in Manhattan, I'd been 28 and already a rising star in the auditing world. But I'd learned the hard way that success intimidated men. My previous relationship had crumbled when my boyfriend couldn't handle dating someone who out-earned him. The one before that had ended when my promotion to senior auditor had somehow emasculated a man who claimed to be progressive. So when Marcus approached me at that gallery, charming and confident in his tailored suit, I'd made a decision. I'd told him I worked in accounting, technically true, for a small firm, a lie by omission. Morrison and Chen employed over 300 people across 5 offices, but I'd let him assume I was a bookkeeper at some modest local practice. He'd seemed relieved, actually. Here was a woman who was educated enough to hold conversation, attractive enough to show off, but not threatening enough to bruise his ego. I'd convinced myself it was strategic, that I was protecting our relationship by downplaying my success. Looking back, I'd been protecting myself from another heartbreak. The lie had grown easier to maintain after we married. Marcus traveled frequently for his job as regional finance director at Hartwell Industries. I kept irregular hours, which I explained away as tax season or quarterly reviews. Again, technically true. We maintained separate bank accounts, which he'd suggested, ironically enough, to keep things simple. I'd paid for our house, this beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in Westchester, through a trust I'd established years ago. Marcus believed it was inherited money from a grandmother, and I'd never corrected him. The car I drove, a modest Honda, I'd purchased myself. His BMW, the designer watches, the golf club membership, all paid from his Hartwell salary, which I knew to the dollar because Hartwell Industries had been our client for 3 years. Sophia. Marcus's voice pulled me back to the present. The dessert? Coming, darling. I entered the dining room with the tray, serving, each guest with the same gracious smile I'd worn all evening. Marcus's colleagues, Robert, the operations manager, Chen Wei, head of IT, Thomas, VP of sales, and Gregory, the compliance officer, nodded their thanks. Their wives, Jennifer, Lisa, May, and Patricia, offered sympathetic smiles, bonding over their shared perception of me as the helpless housefrau. "This looks delicious, Sophia," Patricia said kindly. "You're so talented in the kitchen." "Thank you," I replied, taking my seat at the opposite end of the table from Marcus. It's the least I can do, since Marcus works so hard. Marcus preened. 60-hour weeks lately, the audit's coming up, and we need everything perfect. Though I doubt Sophia understands what that means. Audits and compliance and all that boring number stuff. "It must be stressful," I said softly, cutting into my tart with surgical precision. "Will the audit be difficult?" "Not if you know what you're doing," Marcus said confidently. "It's all about knowing which numbers matter and which are just noise. The auditors, they'll come in with their checklists and their procedures, but they don't understand the real business. They're glorified accountants, really." I took a bite of chocolate tart, savoring both the rich flavor and the irony. Morrison and Chen wasn't just any auditing firm. We'd built our reputation on forensic accuracy, on finding the discrepancies that other firms missed. We employed former FBI financial analysts, data scientists, and some of the best forensic accountants in the country. We didn't miss things, and we definitely didn't miss the pattern of irregularities in Hartwell's Northeastern Division, the division Marcus oversaw. "I'm sure they're very thorough," I offered mildly. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Please," Marcus scoffed. "Last year's auditors spent 3 weeks going through everything and found nothing." "Because there's nothing to find. We run a tight ship." Robert raised his glass. "To Marcus and his tight ship. May the auditors find exactly what we want them to find. A perfectly clean operation." They all drank to that. I raised my glass of sparkling water. I never drank alcohol at these dinners, needed to keep my mind sharp, and smiled along with them. What Marcus didn't know was that last year's auditors had been from a firm that Hartwell's CEO had specifically chosen for their let's call it flexible interpretation of accounting standards. That firm had missed obvious red flags because they'd been paid to miss them. But Hartwell had a new CEO now, brought in 3 months ago after a shareholder revolt. And the new CEO had hired Morrison and Chen specifically because we didn't miss things. We didn't negotiate on ethics. We didn't look the other way. And we'd already found something very interesting in Marcus's division. So what exactly do these auditors look for? Lisa asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. She was younger than the rest of us, recently married to Chen Wei. Marcus leaned back in his chair, assuming his teaching posture. Well, it's complicated, but essentially they check if the books balance. Revenue versus expenses, assets versus liabilities, that sort of thing. Making sure we're not hiding losses or inflating profits. I bit my tongue. His explanation was so oversimplified it bordered on wrong. A proper financial audit examined internal controls, tested transactions for accuracy and authorization, verified asset existence, checked for fraud indicators, assessed going concern issues, evaluated revenue recognition policies, and about 50 other critical factors. But I let him continue. The key, Marcus went on, is proper documentation. As long as every transaction has paperwork to back it up, auditors can't challenge anything. It's all about the paper trail. Or digital trail, Chenwei added. Everything's electronic now. Right, Marcus agreed. But same principle. Documentation is king, and we've got documentation for everything. I wondered if that included documentation for the shell company transactions our forensic team had traced back to his division. The ones that looked suspiciously like money being siphoned out of Hartwell and into private accounts. The digital trail that Chen Wei's IT department had apparently helped create. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, we'd soon find out. Must be boring, though, Thomas said. Going through all those numbers day after day. I don't know how they do it. Some people enjoy that sort of thing, I said quietly. Finding patterns, solving puzzles, making sure everything adds up correctly. There's a certain satisfaction in it. Marcus laughed. Honey, you can barely balance our household checkbook. I don't think you'd find it satisfying. I'd stopped trying to balance our household checkbook 3 years ago when I discovered Marcus had been using our joint household account, the one I'd funded with a monthly deposit, to pay for hotel rooms. Hotel rooms that coincided with his business trips, but weren't listed on his expense reports. Hotel rooms in cities where Hartwell had no offices. I'd confronted him once, early on. He'd explained them away as client meetings that required discretion. I'd wanted to believe him, so I'd let it go, filed the information away, and quietly started building my own evidence file. Because here's what 6 years as a CFO had taught me. People lie, but numbers don't. Financial records tell the truth, if you know how to read them. And I knew how to read them better than almost anyone. More wine, dear? I asked Marcus, standing with the bottle. Please, he said, holding out his glass. I'm celebrating. Just found out we're getting bonuses this quarter, 15% over target. That's wonderful, I said, pouring carefully. You've worked so hard. What I didn't say, I'd already seen. Hartwell's preliminary numbers. The company as a whole was performing at 8% below target, which meant Marcus's division was reporting numbers that didn't match the company's overall performance. Either his division was wildly outperforming every other region, unlikely given market conditions, or someone was cooking the books. My money was on option 2. To bonuses, Gregory raised his glass. As compliance officer, he should have been the one catching these discrepancies. Either he was incompetent, or he was complicit. Tomorrow's audit meeting would help determine which. The conversation drifted to other topics. Vacation plans, the new golf course, someone's daughter's wedding. I served coffee, cleared plates, played the perfect hostess. All the while, my mind was calculating, planning, preparing for tomorrow. Finally, around 11, the guests began making their departure noises. Coats were retrieved, compliments exchanged, promises made about future dinner parties. "Sophia, thank you so much," Patricia said at the door, touching my arm with genuine warmth. "Everything was perfect. You're such a wonderful hostess." "It's my pleasure," I replied, meaning it. I'd always enjoyed entertaining, the careful orchestration of food and conversation, the attention to detail. It wasn't so different from running a successful audit, different pieces moving in coordination toward a desired outcome. Marcus stood beside me, his arm around my waist in a display of affection that felt performative. "She keeps the home fires burning while I'm out there in the corporate trenches," he said proudly. "We're lucky to have such supportive wives," Robert agreed, kissing Jennifer's cheek. After the last guest left, I began clearing the remaining glasses while Marcus locked the front door. "That went well," he said, loosening his tie. "Though I think you might have overdone it with the chocolate in that tart." Patricia barely touched hers. "I'll remember that for next time," I said, loading the dishwasher with practiced efficiency. Marcus came up behind me, his hands on my shoulders. "You know I appreciate you, right? Even if I tease about the financial stuff. You're good at what you do, keeping our home beautiful, making these evenings happen. Not everyone has a head for business, and that's okay." I turned to face him, studying the man I'd married 6 years ago. He was still handsome at 42, his dark hair just beginning to silver at the temples in a way that made him look distinguished rather than old. His smile was the same one that had charmed me at that gallery opening. But now I saw the calculation behind it, the way he'd crafted himself into exactly what he thought would succeed. "Thank you, Marcus," I said. "That means a lot." He kissed my forehead. "I've got an early meeting tomorrow. That audit prep I mentioned. Probably should get some sleep." "You go ahead," I told him. "I'll finish cleaning up." He headed upstairs, and I heard the his bedroom door close a few minutes later. I continued cleaning, wiping down counters, putting away the last of the dessert, my movements automatic while my mind worked through tomorrow's agenda. When everything was spotless, I walked through the dark house to my study, a small room off the kitchen that Marcus thought I used for crafts and hobbies. I locked the door behind me and pulled aside the decorative curtain hiding the wall safe, entering the combination with muscle memory. Inside were 3 folders. The first contained my actual financial records, tax returns showing my income as CFO, a salary that dwarfed Marcus's by a factor of 3. Stock certificates from Morrison and Chen, worth several $1 million. Investment statements, property deeds. Everything that proved Sophia Martinez wasn't a financially illiterate housewife, but a highly successful executive. The second folder held documentation about Marcus, the hotel receipts I'd gathered over the years, credit card statements showing purchases that didn't match his stated activities, photographs from a private investigator I'd hired last year. Nothing conclusive, but certainly suggestive. Marcus with a woman at various restaurants, always when he was supposedly traveling for work. The third folder was newest, started just 3 weeks ago when David Chen had pulled me aside after a partner meeting. "We need to talk about the Hartwell audit," he'd said, his expression serious. "There's a conflict of interest issue." My stomach had dropped. "Marcus, your husband is regional finance director for their Northeastern division, the division where we're finding irregularities." David had handed me a preliminary report. "You need to see this before we go further." I'd read through the report in his office, my professional detachment warring with personal devastation. The pattern was clear. False vendor invoices, revenue recognition manipulation, expense misclassification. Someone in Marcus's division was embezzling funds, and given his position, he was either the perpetrator or criminally negligent in his oversight. "I'll recuse myself from the audit," I'd said immediately. already assumed you would. But Sophia, David had hesitated. We're going to have to pursue this. If he's involved, there will be consequences. Criminal consequences, potentially. I'd nodded, my throat tight. I understand. Do what needs to be done. I won't interfere. And I hadn't. For 3 weeks, I'd maintained the charade at home, while Morrison and Chen's forensic team dug deeper into Hartwell's books. I'd played the dutiful wife at dinner parties while my company built a case that might send my husband to prison. Now, sitting in my study at midnight, I opened the third folder and reviewed the latest findings David had sent earlier today. The evidence was damning. Shell companies registered to addresses that didn't exist. Invoices for services never rendered. Money flowing out of Hartwell and into accounts that traced back, with enough digging, to entities Marcus controlled. He wasn't just committing fraud, he was doing it sloppily, arrogantly, assuming he was smart enough to avoid detection. The same arrogance that let him mock my financial intelligence while committing crimes a first-year forensic accountant could spot. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Can't sleep either. This is going to be ugly tomorrow. I know, I typed back. But it's necessary. How are you holding up? I considered the question. How was I holding up? My husband had lied to me, stolen from his company, mocked me publicly, and quite possibly cheated on me. Tomorrow, I would sit in a meeting where my firm would present evidence that would destroy his career and possibly his freedom. I'm fine, I responded. See you at 9 a.m. But I wasn't fine. I was angry, hurt, disappointed. And beneath all of that, there was a cold, professional satisfaction in knowing that Marcus's arrogance would be his downfall. He'd underestimated the glorified accountants he'd mocked at dinner. He'd underestimated his wife. That was going to cost him everything. I locked the folders back in the safe and headed upstairs. Marcus was already asleep, snoring softly in our king-size bed. I changed quietly in the bathroom, studying my reflection in the mirror. At 35, I still looked young, but there were lines around my eyes that hadn't been there when we married. Stress lines, worry lines. Tomorrow, I would put on my armor, the tailored Armani suit I kept at the office, the Louboutin heels, the understated jewelry that whispered wealth without shouting it. I would be CFO Martinez, not Sophia the housewife, and Marcus would finally see the woman he'd married. I slipped into bed beside my husband, careful not to wake him. In the darkness, I could hear his breathing, steady and peaceful. He had no idea what was coming. No idea that his carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Some people just don't have a mind for numbers, he'd said. Tomorrow, he would learn exactly how wrong he was. The alarm went off at 6 a.m. I silenced it quickly, but Marcus was already awake, reaching for his phone. Big day, he muttered, scrolling through emails. Auditors arrive at 10. Need to make sure everyone's ready. I'm sure you'll do fine, I said, heading to the bathroom. You said yourself. The books are clean. They are. But still, auditors make people nervous. Need to keep everyone calm, focused. I showered and dressed in my usual home attire, jeans and a casual blouse. The transformation would come later, at the office. Marcus barely glanced at me as he knotted his tie, too focused on his phone. Might be late tonight, he said. These audit kickoff meetings always run long. Don't wait dinner for me. Of course not. I headed downstairs to make coffee, going through the morning routine we'd established over 6 years. Coffee for Marcus. Black, no sugar. Green tea for me. Toast with butter for him. Yogurt and fruit for me. We ate in companionable silence, Marcus absorbed in the financial news on his tablet, me mentally reviewing the audit findings one more time. The evidence was solid. We had documentation, Digital trails, testimony from whistleblowers within Hartwell. It was airtight. You seem distracted, Marcus observed, looking up from his tablet. I smiled. Just thinking about my day. I have an important meeting this morning. With your little accounting firm? He said it affectionately, the way you'd talk about a child's lemonade stand. Don't let them work you too hard, honey. It's not like you're saving lives or anything. No, I agreed softly. Just checking numbers. He finished his coffee and stood, grabbing his briefcase. See you tonight, or tomorrow morning, depending on how this goes. He kissed my cheek and left, the BMW's engine purring to life in the driveway. I watched from the window as he drove away, his shoulders straight, his confidence unshaken. In 3 hours, that confidence would be shattered. I cleaned up breakfast quickly, then headed to my own car. The drive into Manhattan took 40 minutes, giving me time to transition from Sophia the wife to Sophia the CFO. By the time I pulled into Morrison and Chen's underground parking garage, I'd mentally reviewed every detail of the Hartwell case. The executive elevator took me directly to the top floor. Our offices occupied floors 20 through 23 of a midtown high-rise, with the executive suites and main conference rooms on 23. I designed this space myself 5 years ago, all glass and clean lines, projecting the transparency and clarity we brought to our audits. Morning, Ms. Martinez. Sarah, my executive assistant, greeted me with a coffee. Proper espresso, the way I liked it. Mr. Chen is already in conference room A with the team. They're waiting for you. Thank you, Sarah. Give me 10 minutes to change. Then I'll head in. My office was a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. It was larger than my entire first apartment had been, a constant reminder of how far I'd come since graduating from NYU with a master's in accounting and a mountain of student debt. I changed quickly, transforming from casual Sophia to CFO Martinez. The Armani suit was black, perfectly tailored. The heels added 3 inches to my 5'6" frame. I touched up my makeup, adding red lipstick, my armor. By the time I looked in the mirror, I was fully myself. The version of me that Marcus had never met. Conference room A was our largest, designed to intimidate. 30 feet long with a table that could seat 20, multiple screens for presentations, and windows that showcased the Manhattan skyline. Our forensic team was already assembled. David Chen at the head of the table, our lead forensic accountant Rachel Morrison reviewing documents, and 3 junior analysts with laptops open. Sophia, David stood as I entered. Despite being business partners for 10 years, we maintained professional formality in front of the team. We're ready when you are. I took my seat at the head of the table, opposite David. Walk me through the final findings. Rachel stood, clicking a remote that brought up the first slide. Hartwell Industries, Northeastern Division, Regional Finance Director, Marcus Chen. Seeing his name on the screen, attached to the evidence we'd compiled, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Over the past 18 months, we've identified approximately $2.3 million in fraudulent transactions. The pattern is consistent. False vendor invoices for consulting services that were never rendered, with payments going to shell companies registered in Delaware and Nevada. She clicked to the next slide, showing a flowchart of money movement. The shell companies then transfer funds to various accounts, but with sufficient forensic analysis, we can trace them back to accounts controlled by Marcus Chen, either directly or through intermediaries. How solid is the connection? I asked, my voice steady despite the weight in my chest. Very solid, David answered. We have bank records, IP addresses showing who accessed the shell company accounts, and testimony from 2 employees who were instructed by Chen to process these invoices without proper verification. Will those employees testify if this goes to trial? They've already agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. They can prove they were following Chen's direct orders. I nodded slowly. What about the IT department? The digital trail had to be created somehow. Rachel pulled up another slide. Chen Wei, head of IT, appears to have created false email trails and modified timestamps in the system. We're still determining if he knew what he was doing or if Marcus Chen deceived him about the purpose. Chen Wei. Marcus's friend. The man who'd sat at our dinner table last night, laughing at jokes about my supposed incompetence. Had he known? Had they all known? The compliance officer, Gregory Morrison, I said. Any evidence of his involvement? Negligence, certainly. Whether it's willful or mere incompetence is harder to prove. He signed off on reviews that should have caught these discrepancies. At minimum, he failed in his oversight duties. I sat back, processing. $2.3 million. That was the number that would define everything going forward. That was what my husband had stolen, what our marriage had been worth to him. When do we present to Hartwell's CEO? I asked. They're expecting us at 10 a.m., David said. But Sophia, we need to discuss your role in this. Obviously, you can't be present for— I know, I interrupted. I recused myself from the audit 3 weeks ago. I'm only here now to review the final findings as CFO of this firm. You'll present to Hartwell without me. And after? When this becomes public? I'd been thinking about this for weeks. The personal fallout, the professional implications, the media attention. The CFO's husband caught embezzling from a major client. It would be a scandal. We follow protocol, I said firmly. We present our findings to Hartwell's CEO and board. We recommend they involve law enforcement. We cooperate fully with any investigation, and we maintain absolute confidentiality about our clients' affairs, as we always do. The press will figure out the connection eventually, Rachel said gently. Let them. We've done nothing wrong. We conducted an audit, found fraud, and reported it. The fact that the perpetrator is married to me is unfortunate, but it doesn't change our ethical obligations. David studied me across the table. You're sure about this? We could potentially find a way to— No. My voice was sharp. We don't compromise our ethics. Not for anyone, not even for me. If we start making exceptions, we're no better than the fraudsters we're supposed to catch. There was a moment of silence, then David nodded. You're right. Of course you're right. Good. I stood, signaling the meeting was ending. Present the findings to Hartwell at 10. I want a full report on their response by end of day. Rachel, make sure every piece of evidence is documented and backed up. If this goes to trial, our work needs to be bulletproof. It will be, Rachel assured me. I returned to my office, closing the door behind me. Through the windows, I could see the city spread out below, millions of people going about their lives, unaware that mine was about to change irrevocably. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Auditors are here early. Arrogant bunch. This is going to be a long day. I stared at the message, then typed back. Good luck. What else could I say? I know you're a criminal. My firm is about to destroy you. Every lie you've told me is about to be exposed. Instead, I sent him luck. Because he was going to need it. The morning crawled by. I tried to focus on other work. We had 15 active audits besides Hartwell, but my mind kept drifting. At 9:45, I watched from my office as David and Rachel left for Hartwell's offices, carrying the evidence that would end my husband's career. Sarah brought me lunch at noon, but I barely touched it. At 2 p.m., my phone rang. David. It's done, he said. Hartwell's CEO and general counsel have reviewed our findings. They're involving law enforcement, FBI White-Collar Crime Division. Marcus Chen and Gregory Morrison have been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Chen Wei is being questioned but hasn't been suspended yet. I closed my eyes. How did Marcus react? He denied everything initially, called it a misunderstanding, said he could explain the discrepancies. Then we showed him the bank records, the testimony from his subordinates, the digital trail. David paused. He asked to call his wife. My throat tightened. What did you say? We told him he could call an attorney. He's in the general counsel's office now, making arrangements. Thank you for letting me know. Sophia, I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. It's necessary, I said, echoing what I'd told him last night. Keep me updated on any developments. I hung up and sat in the silence of my office, staring at my phone. Any moment now, Marcus would call. He'd be panicking, confused, desperate for help. And what would I say? The phone rang. Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Voicemail. A text appeared. Sophia, call me. Emergency at work. Need you to come get me. Then another. Please. I need you. And another. Answer your phone. I turned the phone face down on my desk and stood, walking to the window. Somewhere out there, Marcus was realizing that his world was collapsing, that the glorified accountants had caught him, that his career, his reputation, possibly his freedom, were gone. Did he suspect yet that his wife was behind it? That the woman he'd mocked for not understanding balance sheets was the CFO of the firm dismantling his fraud? Probably not. Marcus had spent 6 years underestimating me. He wouldn't stop now. My phone continued buzzing with calls and texts. I ignored them all, standing at the window as the afternoon sun stretched shadows across Manhattan. This morning, I'd been a wife. Tonight, I would still be technically married, but the relationship was over. We both knew it, even if only one of us understood why. Tomorrow, I would probably need to find a divorce attorney. But today, I was CFO Martinez, and I had work to do. I turned from the window and pulled up my email, beginning to draft the internal memo that would inform our partners about the Hartwell findings and the potential conflict of interest. Transparency was essential, both for our firm's integrity and for my own protection. As I typed, my mind was already planning. The divorce would be complicated but manageable. Marcus would be in no position to fight for assets, not with criminal charges pending. The house was mine, purchased through my trust. My career wouldn't suffer. If anything, this demonstrated Morrison & Chen's commitment to ethics above all else. The personal pain, though, that would take longer to heal. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of pretending to be someone I wasn't, 6 years of letting Marcus feel superior while I quietly built an empire he'd never even known existed. And it all ended with a forensic audit and a stack of evidence that proved numbers don't lie, even when people do. The calls kept coming throughout the afternoon. Marcus. Then numbers I didn't recognize. Probably his attorney. Then Marcus again. By 5 p.m., I had 17 missed calls and 32 text messages, each one more desperate than the last. Finally, at 5:47 p.m., I answered. Sophia, thank God. Marcus's voice was ragged, panicked. Where have you been? I've been calling for hours. I was in meetings, I said calmly, settling back in my office chair. What's wrong? What's wrong? Everything. These auditors. They're accusing me of fraud. It's insane. It's a mistake. They've got everything wrong. Slow down, I said, maintaining the gentle, slightly confused tone I'd perfected over 6 years. What auditors? Morrison & Chen, the firm doing our annual audit. They're saying I embezzled money, that I created fake invoices, that... His voice broke. Sophia, I need you. Can you come get me? They've taken my company car, my access badge, everything. I'm stranded at the office. Of course, I said softly. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Thank you, he breathed. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. I hung up and sat for a moment, staring at the phone. Then I stood, grabbed my purse, and headed for the elevator. Sarah looked up as I passed her desk. Heading out, Ms. Martinez? Yes. I'll be working remotely tomorrow. Cancel my morning appointments. Of course. Is everything all right? I paused at the elevator. Everything's fine, Sarah. Just some personal matters to attend to. The drive to Hartwell Industries took 25 minutes in rush hour traffic. Their offices were in a glass tower in Stamford, Connecticut. Impressive from the outside, but I knew the books well enough to know the company was leveraged to the hilt. One major scandal could tank their stock price. This qualified as a major scandal. I parked in the visitor lot and walked through the lobby, still wearing my Armani suit and Louboutins. The security guard barely glanced at me as I signed in, asking for Marcus Chen. He's waiting in the main lobby, ma'am. They escorted him out of the building about an hour ago. Thank you. I found Marcus sitting on a bench near the front entrance, his head in his hands. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, a sharp contrast to the confident man who'd held court at our dinner table last night. A cardboard box sat beside him, the cliché of corporate termination. Marcus, I said softly. He looked up, and I saw real fear in his eyes. Sophia. He stood, reaching for me, and I let him embrace me. Over his shoulder, I could see his reflection in the glass doors. A man who'd just lost everything. Let's go home, I said. He grabbed his box, and we walked to my car in silence. He slumped in the passenger seat as I drove, staring out the window. It's all wrong, he said finally. Everything they're saying. I didn't do any of it. Tell me what happened, I said, keeping my eyes on the road. These auditors, they showed up this morning. Morrison and Chen, supposedly the best in the business, very thorough. I wasn't worried. Our books are clean. But then, he rubbed his face. They had all these allegations. Fake invoices, shell companies, money transfers. They're saying I stole over $2 million. Did you? The question hung in the air. Marcus turned to look at me, shocked. What? No, of course not. How can you even ask that? Because they're professionals, Marcus. Auditors don't make accusations like that without evidence. The evidence is wrong. It's been fabricated or misinterpreted or... He stopped, shaking his head. I can't believe you're not supporting me here. I am supporting you. I came to get you, didn't I? But Marcus, if they have evidence, you need to take this seriously. Have you called a lawyer? Yes. Criminal defense attorney. He's reviewing everything tonight. Marcus's voice cracked. Criminal, Sophia? They're talking about pressing charges. The FBI might get involved. I could go to prison. We pulled into our driveway. The house looked the same as it had this morning, but everything had changed. We sat in the car for a moment, neither of us moving. I need you to believe me, Marcus said quietly. I didn't do this. I'm being framed. By who? I don't know. Maybe competitors, maybe someone at Hartwell who wants my job, maybe the auditors themselves made mistakes. He turned to face me fully. Sophia, you know me. You know I wouldn't do something like this. Did I? I'd thought I knew him 6 years ago when we married. Thought he was kind, supportive, genuine. But the man who mocked me at dinner parties, who kept hotel receipts from cities where he had no business, who'd spent our entire marriage underestimating me. Did I really know him at all? Let's go inside, I said. We walked through the front door, and Marcus headed straight for the liquor cabinet, pouring himself 3 fingers of whiskey. I set my purse on the kitchen counter, watching him. The worst part, he said, downing half the glass, is that these people at Morrison and Chen were so smug about it, like they enjoyed destroying me. The CFO, Martinez, I never met her. She wasn't even at the presentation. But her second in command, David Chen, he practically smiled when he showed me the evidence. My heart rate quickened. Martinez? That's the CFO's name? Yeah. Sophia Martinez. Supposedly some hotshot who built the firm from nothing. Why? I set my purse down carefully. Marcus, we need to talk. I know. The lawyer said I shouldn't discuss the case with anyone, but you're my wife. You need to know what's— No, I interrupted. We need to talk about something else. About who I really am. He looked at me, confused. What are you talking about? I walked to my study, unlocked the door, and retrieved the first folder from my safe. When I returned to the kitchen, Marcus was refilling his glass. Marcus, I said, setting the folder on the counter between us. My name is Sophia Martinez. I am the CFO of Morrison & Chen. I'm the one who ordered the audit that found your fraud. He stared at me. Then he laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. What? No, you work for some small accounting firm. You can barely understand a tax return. That's what I let you believe. I opened the folder, spreading documents across the counter. These are my tax returns for the past 6 years. As you can see, my income as CFO of Morrison & Chen ranges from $800,000 to $1.2 million annually, depending on bonuses and stock options. Marcus picked up one of the returns, his hands shaking slightly. This can't be real. It's very real. I'm also a founding partner of the firm, which means I own 40% of the company. My net worth is approximately $8.3 million. I pulled out another document. This is the deed to our house. I purchased it through a trust fund I established with my earnings. You've been living in my house for 6 years. His face had gone pale. You're lying. This is some kind of sick joke. No joke. Here's my business card. I pulled one from my wallet and slid it across the counter. Embossed lettering, Sophia Martinez, CFO, Morrison & Chen. Marcus looked at the card, then at me, then back at the documents spread across the counter. I could see his mind working, trying to reconcile the woman standing before him with the helpless wife he thought he knew. Why? He asked finally. Why would you lie about this for 6 years? Because I learned that successful women intimidate men. My previous relationships all ended when my partners couldn't handle my success. So when I met you, I decided to try something different. I downplayed my career, let you think I was just a bookkeeper at a small firm. I wanted to see if you'd love me for who I was, not what I could provide. And instead, I mocked you, he said slowly, understanding dawning. All those dinner parties, all those jokes about you not understanding finance. While I was actually running one of the most successful auditing firms in the Northeast? Yes. He sank into a chair, the whiskey glass forgotten. So this whole thing, the audit, the allegations, you orchestrated this to get revenge on me? No, I said firmly. I recused myself from your audit the moment I learned Hartwell was our client. I've had no involvement in the investigation. My team conducted a standard forensic audit and found evidence of fraud. The fact that you're the perpetrator is unfortunate, but it doesn't change what you did. What I allegedly did, he corrected. Because I didn't do it, Sophia. Someone set me up. I pulled out my phone and opened the file David had sent me. These are copies of emails you sent to subordinates, instructing them to process invoices without proper verification. Your IP address, sent from your work computer. Those could be faked. These are bank records showing wire transfers from Hartwell to shell companies you control. We traced the incorporation documents back to you. Circumstantial. We have 2 employees willing to testify that you directly ordered them to bypass normal approval processes. They're cooperating with investigators in exchange for immunity. Marcus's face hardened. You're actually trying to convince me you believe I'm guilty. I know you're guilty, Marcus. I've seen the evidence. It's comprehensive, documented, and it will hold up in court. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. My own wife. Working to send me to prison. Your own actions are sending you to prison. I'm just doing my job. Your job? His voice rose. Your job was to be my wife, to support me, not to run some secret business empire and use it to destroy me. I am supporting you, I said calmly. I'm telling you the truth. You committed fraud. You stole $2.3 million from your employer, and now you need to accept responsibility for what you've done. I didn't do it. He slammed his glass down on the counter and it shattered. Whiskey and glass shards spread across the granite. Why won't you believe me? Because numbers don't lie, Marcus. People lie. You've been lying to me for years. About the hotel rooms, about the business trips, about everything. But the financial records? Those tell the truth. He stared at me, breathing hard. What hotel rooms? I pulled out the second folder. These hotel rooms, the ones you've been visiting on your business trips. The ones that don't show up on your expense reports because they weren't for business. I spread the receipts across the counter next to the broken glass. Marcus looked at them, and something in his expression shifted. Guilt, finally. So you knew, he said quietly. I've known for 3 years. I hired a private investigator. I have photographs of you with at least 2 different women. I have credit card statements showing jewelry purchases that I never received. I have all of it, Marcus. He slumped back into the chair. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to believe there was an explanation. Because I still loved you, or thought I did. Because ending a marriage is hard, even when you know it's over. I began gathering the documents, returning them to the folders. But mostly, I didn't say anything because I was waiting to see if you'd confess, if you'd come to me on your own and tell me the truth. And I never did. No, you never did. We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows through the kitchen windows. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now, you'll be charged with embezzlement and fraud. You'll go to trial and you'll probably be convicted because the evidence is overwhelming. You'll serve time in federal prison, probably 3 to 5 years, depending on your lawyer's negotiating skills, and we'll get divorced. Just like that. 6 years of marriage over? Marcus, our marriage ended years ago. We've just been going through the motions. I pulled out my phone. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow, I want you to find somewhere else to stay. My attorney will be in touch about divorce proceedings. Your attorney, he repeated bitterly. Of course you already have an attorney. Probably had one lined up for months, just waiting for the right moment to destroy me. I contacted her this afternoon, actually, after your company called the FBI. I stood, folders in hand. For what it's worth, Marcus, I didn't want this. I wanted a real marriage with someone who loved and respected me, but you wanted a trophy wife, someone you could show off while feeling superior to. You wanted someone weak enough to make you feel strong. That's not true, isn't it? Every dinner party, every gathering, you made sure everyone knew I was the pretty but dim wife who couldn't understand your important work. You built your ego on my manufactured incompetence. I moved toward my study. The irony is, if you'd just treated me as an equal, if you'd been honest and faithful, none of this would be happening. I would never have looked into your finances. I would never have known about the fraud. So this is my fault? He laughed harshly. I'm the bad guy because I didn't realize my wife was lying to me about her entire life? You're the bad guy because you committed crimes, Marcus. My career, my identity, those were mine to share or not. But stealing from your company, that's on you. I walked to my study, locked the folders away, and stood for a moment in the quiet room. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up. I'd done it. I'd told him the truth. And instead of the satisfaction I'd imagined, I felt only a deep, hollow sadness. 6 years. 6 years of building a life with someone who'd never really seen me. 6 years of pretending to be less than I was. 6 years wasted. When I emerged from the study, Marcus was still sitting at the kitchen counter, staring at the broken glass. "I did love you," he said quietly, not looking at me. "In the beginning, before everything got so complicated." "I loved you too," I admitted. "Or I loved who I thought you were." "Guess we both married strangers." "I guess we did." I left him there and went upstairs, locking myself in the guest bedroom. Through the door, I could hear him moving around the kitchen, cleaning up the broken glass, pouring another drink. Eventually, his footsteps climbed the stairs, and the master bedroom door closed. I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, and let myself cry for the first time in months. Not for Marcus. He'd made his choices and would face the consequences. But for the marriage I'd wanted, the partnership I'd hoped for, the future I'd imagined that would never exist. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I grieved. 3 months later, I sat in my office at Morrison and Chen, reviewing quarterly reports. Through the windows, spring had arrived in Manhattan, bringing green to the parks and warmth to the air. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney. "Divorce finalized. Papers signed. You're officially free." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Thank you." Marcus had pled guilty to embezzlement and fraud 6 weeks ago, part of a deal that got him 4 years in federal prison instead of the 8 he'd been facing. His attorney had tried to use our relationship as leverage, suggesting I'd had a vendetta, but the evidence was too solid. The judge had been unmoved. I hadn't attended the sentencing. There was nothing left to say. The house was quiet now, just me and the echoes of a failed marriage. I'd redecorated the master bedroom, turning it into a true sanctuary. The guest room became a home office. Slowly, I was reclaiming the space, making it mine. "Ms. Martinez?" Sarah poked her head into my office. "The partners' meeting starts in 5 minutes." "Thank you. I'll be right there." I gathered my materials and headed to the conference room, where David and the other senior partners were already assembling. We had business to discuss: new clients, expansion plans, the usual quarterly agenda. "Before we start," David said once everyone was seated, "I want to address the Hartwell situation. As you all know, the case received significant media attention due to Sophia's relationship with the defendant. I want to confirm that our handling of this audit has been thoroughly reviewed by external counsel, and our procedures were beyond reproach. Sophia's recusal was immediate and complete. The investigation was conducted with absolute integrity." Nods around the table. Everyone had been supportive, professional. If anything, the scandal had enhanced Morrison and Chen's reputation. We'd proven we couldn't be influenced, not even by personal relationships. "Thank you, David," I said. "I appreciate the team's support during a difficult time, and I'm pleased to report that we've signed 3 new major clients in the past month, all citing our Hartwell work as evidence of our commitment to ethical auditing." "Speaking of new clients," Rachel chimed in, "I've been contacted by a Fortune 500 company looking for forensic audit services. They specifically requested Sophia lead the engagement." "Then Sophia will lead it," David said, smiling at me. "Assuming she's ready to take on new challenges?" I thought about it. 3 months ago, I'd been a woman living a double life, trapped in a failing marriage, watching my husband commit crimes. Now I was simply Sophia Martinez, CFO, no longer hiding who I was or what I'd achieved. "I'm ready," I said. The meeting continued, and I found myself fully engaged in a way I hadn't been in years. No more divided attention between work and maintaining a facade. No more energy wasted on pretending to be someone I wasn't. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find an email from an unexpected source. Patricia, one of the wives from that last dinner party. Dear Sophia, I hope this message finds you well. I heard about everything that happened with Marcus and I wanted to reach out. Jennifer, Lisa, May, and I have been talking, and we all feel terrible about how we treated you at those dinner parties. We bought into the narrative our husbands created, never questioning it. We should have gotten to know you better. Should have seen past their dismissive attitudes. I did some research after the news broke. You've accomplished incredible things in your career. I'm embarrassed that we all sat there letting the men mock you when you were running circles around them professionally. If you're open to it, we'd love to take you to lunch sometime. No husbands, no pretense. Just us, getting to know the real you. Best regards, Patricia. I read the email twice, surprised by the gesture. It would be easy to decline, to cut ties with everyone from that part of my life. But maybe that wasn't necessary. Maybe some relationships could be salvaged, rebuilt on honesty instead of lies. Patricia, thank you for reaching out. I'd enjoy lunch with you all. How about next Tuesday? Best, Sophia. That evening, I drove home through the spring twilight, windows down, music playing. The house no longer felt like a monument to a failed marriage. It was just a house, one I'd worked hard to afford, filled with things I'd chosen. I made dinner, just for myself, something simple, and ate on the back patio, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone rang. Unknown number. This is Sophia. Ms. Martinez, this is Jennifer Wu from NYU School of Business. I'm reaching out because we'd love to have you speak at our annual career symposium. Your story, building Morrison and Chen, maintaining professional ethics in difficult circumstances, it's exactly the kind of real-world experience our students need to hear. I'd be honored, I said, meaning it. We discussed details, dates, topics, logistics. After we hung up, I sat for a while longer, thinking about what I'd tell those students. What lessons had I learned from 6 years of living a lie? Be yourself, I'd say. Don't minimize your accomplishments to make others comfortable. Find partners who celebrate your success, not feel threatened by it. And most importantly, trust in your own competence. The numbers don't lie, even when people do. My phone buzzed again. A text from David. Dinner tomorrow. We should discuss the Fortune 500 proposal. Sounds good. 7 p.m. at Cipriani? Perfect. I smiled, setting the phone aside. David and I had always been good partners, building Morrison and Chen from a small 2-person operation into what it was today. Lately, there had been something else between us, a possibility neither of us had acted on while I was married. Now? Well, now was different. The future felt wide open in a way it hadn't in years. No more secrets, no more pretending, no more limiting myself to make someone else feel adequate. Just me, Sophia Martinez, CFO and founding partner of Morrison and Chen. A woman who'd learned the hard way that the only person you can really count on is yourself, and that sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is stop playing small. I gathered my dishes and went inside, already planning tomorrow's presentation to the Fortune 500 client. There was work to do, challenges to meet, a career to continue building. And this time, I'd do it as myself. Completely, unapologetically myself. No more hiding in the shadows of someone else's insecurity. No more pretending ignorance to protect someone's fragile ego. No more accepting mockery and condescension in the name of keeping peace. The woman who couldn't read a balance sheet was gone. The CFO who could audit entire corporations with precision and skill had always been here, and she was just getting started. 6 months later, epilogue. The conference room at Morrison and Chen was packed for the all-hands meeting, Our firm had just been ranked number 3 in the nation for forensic auditing, and we'd expanded to 2 new cities. I stood at the front of the room, looking at the team we'd built. Accountants, analysts, investigators, all committed to the same mission of truth and transparency in financial reporting. This year has been transformative, I said, my voice carrying to the back of the room. We've faced challenges, both professional and personal. We've been tested, and we've proven that integrity isn't just a buzzword, it's the foundation of everything we do. Applause filled the room. Sarah caught my eye from the side, giving me a thumbs up. I also want to share some personal news, I continued. As many of you know, I've been invited to join the board of the National Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. It's an honor I'm accepting, and it's a testament to the reputation this firm has built. More applause. David stood, raising his glass of champagne. To Sofia Martinez, he said, a leader who proves that excellence and ethics go hand in hand, and to Morrison and Chen, may we never compromise our values, no matter who's being audited. To Morrison and Chen, the room echoed. After the meeting, David and I stood at the windows of my office, watching the city lights sparkle in the darkness. You've come a long way from that woman pretending not to understand financial statements, he said. I was never that woman, I corrected gently. I just let someone believe I was. True. He turned to face me. Dinner tonight? We could celebrate properly. I'd like that. As he left to finish some paperwork, I stayed at the window, reflecting on the journey. Marcus was 18 months into his prison sentence. We'd had no contact since the divorce was finalized. According to his attorney, he was teaching financial literacy classes to other inmates. A redemption arc I hoped was genuine. The women from those dinner parties had become actual friends. We met monthly for lunch, and they'd become some of my strongest supporters, referring clients and spreading word of Morrison and Chen's integrity. My career had flourished in ways I'd never imagined when I was hiding my success. Speaking engagements, board positions, mentorship opportunities, all because I'd finally stopped pretending to be less than I was. The irony wasn't lost on me. The moment I stopped hiding, the moment I embraced my full identity and capabilities, everything fell into place. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Former Hartwell executive Marcus Chen denied early release. Parole board CTs lack of genuine remorse. I read the article briefly. Marcus had apparently told the parole board that he'd been unfairly targeted and that his wife's vendetta had influenced the investigation. Still denying responsibility, still playing the victim. I deleted the notification and turned away from my phone. His story was no longer mine to carry. I had my own story now, one of resilience, integrity, and refusing to be diminished. One of building something meaningful and protecting it fiercely. One of learning that the right person will never ask you to be smaller, quieter, or less capable. And if they do, well, the numbers will eventually tell the truth. They always do. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.